Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thigh channel of this new episode in the Ask Reddit series of what do most people not realize is newer than they actually think. The knowledge that it's bad to drink when pregnant only became widely known in the 80s. This one boggles my mind. Alcohol isn't exactly new. The ancient Greeks had wine and mead. The temperance movement was active for a good 100 years before they got the 18th Amendment. But nope, while there were certainly some alarms raised throughout history, people from on were surprised to learn about fetal alcohol syndrome in 1973, and it wasn't confirmed by a second group of researchers until 1979. In the 60s and 80s, it was apparently common for doctors to give alcohol intravenously to women to stop premature labor. I remember reading Brave New World, which was written before this discovery, and I recall they poisoned the embryos that would become deltas and epsilons with alcohol in order to induce retardation and create their very most pliable citizens. Which was this something people had a hunch about? Did people know little Billy was strange because his mom was wasted the whole time she was pregnant, or was that just one kind of crazy guess? Ciabatta bread goes all the way back to the early 1980s. Haha, I heard of that too a while back when I was googling it again. Apparently, baguettes are from early 1900s. Crazy. I would have thought that they would have been historical. I, I didn't know baguettes were so new. Similarly, there's no records of tiramisu existing before 1960s, or Caesar salad, which was invented in Mexico by a guy called Cesar Cardini in 1924. Boxer briefs are fairly new to the scene, becoming popular in the 1990s. I'm happy they did. Tomatoes are actually a New World crop, so when you associate Italy with pasta sauce, you're actually thinking of Italy post Columbian exchange mid 1500s. And actually, tomato sauce wasn't even invented until the late 19th century, so go figure. Knowing what the sun is made out of, I have in my possession an astronomy textbook from the 1890s. It states plainly that the sun is made of fire and goes out of its way to mention a scientist who believes the interior of the sun could be a Garden of Eden type of paradise. It's made out of warm and bright too, don't forget bright, only during the day. The sun is a miasma of incandescent plasma. I remember when they had to change the song LOL. I came here to make a reference and I see I was beaten. Why Does the Sun Shine, recorded in 1993, and its more scientifically correct sequel, Why Does the Sun Really Shine? For those who are unfamiliar, the first song was a cover of a song on a 1959 educational album, and they decided to write a second scientifically correct song because that sort of nerdy thing that They Might Be Giants would do. What hit me the other day, Germany was only reunited 30 years ago. Yep, I saw West Germany on my birth certificate last month and felt like some ancient crone. When you're filling up forms or documents that require you to state your place of birth, do you still write West Germany or just Germany? Not on purpose, but as someone who was born in a British military housing in West Germany, I was put Germany as my place of birth, but I've always put my nationality as British. Super confusing. Me too. There's a handful of us. New Zealand, its indigenous population has only arrived there about 800 years ago, despite Australia just across the Tasman have been inhabited for 75,000 plus years. History class in New Zealand is really boring. We learn the same history year after year because there isn't a lot of it. Having to show ID at the US-Canada border. Prior to 9/11, they often wouldn't even ask to see a driver's license. Same at the Mexican border. Even after 9/11, I can remember going down to Puerto Penasco around 2002 or 2003 and just being waved through on my way home. Didn't even have to roll down my window, much less show an ID. I grew up in rural West Texas, and my family and I would frequently cross the river to go to the small Mexican villages. It was definitely illegal crossing into Mexico that way, but everyone did it, and the Border Patrol didn't care at the time. The people who lived in these villages would cross into the US to buy supplies that were harder to get in Mexico. Nowadays, the practice has pretty much stopped. The theory of plate tectonics. It pretty much wakes up an entire backbone of modern geology, yet it wasn't actually accepted until the 1960s. Alfred Wegener proposed his theory of continental drift in 1915, but couldn't explain the mechanism behind it, so his theory was dismissed. Over the next few decades, the evidence of crustal movements became undeniable, and plate tectonics developed as a theory. It's just crazy to me that geologists were pretty much completely clueless until around 60 years ago. Geologist here, I had professors who grew up before continental drift was accepted. My paleo professor's PhD advisor went to his grave denying continental drift was a thing. Wild. Hallways weren't widely used until the 1800s. Rooms would just open into the next room. I realized that the old house I grew up in didn't have any hallways. It never dawned on me. Makes sense now. It's how I built houses in The Sims. I just realized that I never built hallways on the first floor. All the rooms just connect to the living room and kitchen dining area. I usually have a landing on the second floor because the stairs take up so much room, but never a legit hallway. I grew up in an early 20th century house with no hallways, so that's probably where that all came from. Yep, it's odd seeing an old house where you have to pass through a bedroom to get another room. Just doesn't seem right. Your comment made me realize how strange this idea is to my modern sensibilities. My sisters had to walk through us boys' room. Privacy? What's that? My younger brother and I had to go through my big brother's room. The fear of enter and crossing was palpable. We would make game plans to distract or bargain our way safely through. Often I would sleep in the living room for fear of what weird booby traps awaited me. Pluto, the celestial body, wasn't truly discovered until 1930. Only 1 year later, Mickey Mouse's dog was renamed from Rover to Pluto, likely to capitalize on the hype around this new planet, but there's no such sources to confirm this. Machu Picchu, the Tower of London, predates it by almost 400 years. I think the Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans in general are all more recent than people realize. A lot of people don't realize that Mayan people are still around us too. Incas too, sort of. Their direct descendants who speak their language Quechua live in the Andes to this day. So I ended up looking into further in it, and it looks like Quechua wasn't exclusive to the Incan people and apparently predates their empire, so till I guess. My best friend for school was Bolivian. 1 month his grandmother came to visit. She only spoke Quechua and liked to talk to me a lot. To this day, I have no idea what she told me. I lived in Bolivia for 2 years, loved it, picked up Spanish pretty quickly, but Quechua is another beast entirely. I still remember saying how to say no money through haha mana cachucoque. About the only other thing I learned was Imainaya Kasanki. It should be noted that I really don't know how to spell these phrases. It's my best guess, which, if I recall, meant how are you? Toilet paper, as we know, it's soft, fluffy white. Toilet paper was that was free of wood splinters didn't exist until the 1920s. Hey, that's how I picked my username. Splinter free. Similar story, but well, never mind. Wood splinters, how? People used scrap paper and Sears catalogs for toilet paper. I'm not joking. One local political candidate, I think it was Huey Long, had the idea of using cheap newsprint for flyers during his campaign instead of fancy toilet paper because he knew people would accept them because they needed toilet paper. Back in the 90s, my great grandma still didn't have indoor plumbing, and we used to use the outhouse when we stayed with her. She kept stacks of catalogs and magazines in there instead of toilet paper. Now I wonder if that's the real origin of keeping reading material in the bathroom. I always thought of it was just well for reading. Sometimes you need some friction. So the phrase "tear that up" originated during splintered era. Then one reason the Sears catalog became so popular: after you ordered everything you needed from it, you just hung it by a string in the outhouse. Yeah, my family in Kentucky always talk about how much it sucked having to go outside to use the bathroom at night, and how disappointed they were when the Sears catalog changed to glossy paper. Farmer's Almanac still use the same paper for this purpose. At home, blood glucose monitoring has only been made possible around 1980. 1909 through 1980, you had to make an appointment with your doctor. I am type 1 diabetic. My brother found an old late 80s or very early 90s test kit at a thrift store one time. He thought of it would be neat to have, so he bought it for like $3 or something. We got it up and working and wanted to see how accurate it was. Since those back then really were just ballpark, and once I put a huge amount of blood it required on a strip, it shut off. So naturally, we were disappointed. Set it on the counter and got to do something else. Several minutes later, it started screeching, and so we checked it, and it was giving us a fairly accurate glucose reading. It didn't turn off or die, it just had a 5 minute test time. I often thank God just how far medical technology has come. What with a small drop of blood and 2 second test time have for my current meter, it's super easy to get frustrated with diabetes, but I always try to remember how just good we have it now. My father has one of those new fancy ones where it's a patch with a small flexible needle-like sensor. It monitors it 24/7 and syncs up to his phone and device. The second I heard about it, I knew it was game-changing for people like him who often forget to test when he should. The now commonly accepted theory that a large meteor caused or was a major cause of the extinction of dinosaurs. When you watch Fantasia 1940, you see the rite of spring sequence wherein you witness the extinction of dinosaurs. You see that is portrayed as a great drought, which was followed by a series of massive earthquakes. That's because at the time this was the most accepted idea of what caused the mass extinction. The theory of dinosaurs being killed off by a meteor strike, or the effects of said strike on the planet rather, is called the Alvarez theory. It was proposed by Luis and Walter Alvarez in the year 1980. I'm 32 and I can remember being taught in elementary school that the meteor asteroid theory was just one of the many accepted theories about how the dinosaurs were extinct and that they had no solid evidence of it at the time. It's crazy how recent it is. Italy was not a unified single country until 1871. Before that, it was a patchwork of small kingdoms and city-states with different local dialects and languages. As late as 1861, only 2.5% of Italians spoke what is now known as Standard Italian, which before then was the Florentine dialect of Tuscan. Germany as well. Belgium is younger than the United States. White LED lights, which were only made possible when Japanese scientists worked out how to make blue light emitting LEDs in the 1990s. So the blue LEDs that you now see everywhere from cars to PC rigs are also that new. Edit should mention Professor Isamu Akazaki, Hiroshi Amano, and Shuji Nakamura won the 2014 Nobel Prize for their discovery. Blues were also prohibitively expensive. Blue power LEDs started in only the highest end gear, so then it got trendy. As blue LEDs got inexpensive, they became the go-to for every piece of crap that needed a power light to look expensive. You might not remember, but there was a delay in PlayStation 2 shipments because they could not source enough good blue LEDs for the power button. First electronic device I ever owned with blue LEDs. The knowledge that the other galaxies exist other than our own Milky Way was only found in 1925. And the word galaxy comes from the Greek word for milk, since at the time it was named the Milky Way was the only one. To be specific. The myth goes that Zeus put Hercules by Hera while she was sleeping, allowing the baby to drink milk. Has divine properties. Hera woke up, realized the baby was Hercules, and threw the baby away. This caused some of the milk to spill into the heavens, which they believe was the cause of what we know of the Milky Way in the sky. .401k retirement accounts didn't start until about 1980, aka we haven't yet to see an entire generation actually retire with a 401k. Well, thanks for all the rewards. Go out and vote, y'all. This one I didn't know, so the first generation that started 401k investing is about to retire. That will no doubt make life interesting. A bunch of boomers and essentially pre-boomers have retired with 401k plus pensions. They make bank. One of the reasons USPS is such a big employer of veterans is because you can do 20 years in the military, retire with your pension, and then do 20 years in the post office and get pension there too by the time you're 60. This one blew my mind. Not crazy if you think about it. People didn't need 401k pensions were a common thing back then. I actually remember when the company I worked for sent out the notice that the pension plan was being eliminated and replaced by 401k. So I'm literally the bridge generation. I will have both a small pension and a 401k. Diamond rings became an engagement gesture. Only arose in the 1940s because diamonds were becoming less valuable and the powers at be needed not to let this happen. Paramedics. Before the formation of a paramedic program, medical emergencies were handled by police or by undertakers. One of the first programs was started to help a black community in Pittsburgh. Here's an article, a 99PI article, and a podcast. Picasso's death, 1973. Same with Salvador Dali. He died in 1989. Something that blows my mind, Picasso could have seen the Godfather movie. He actually did and sort of reviewed it. Charlie Chaplin died in 1977. Star Wars release date 25th of May 1977. It definitely could have seen Star Wars. Democrats, while being blue and Republicans being red, only dates back to around the year 2000. The colors used to alternate each election, but the extended discussion of red states and blue states didn't exist only until about year 2000. The last execution by guillotine happened the year they released Star Wars in the movie theaters in 1977. And it wasn't officially removed as a form of execution until 1981 in France. Alright guys, well thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next episode. Subscribe if you're new. Like this video. Comment down below for future episodes for the Ask Reddit series. See you all soon. Take care.